we could talk in a secure setting, you'd be like, how did they miss this? The CSU team would not have missed it if they were there, which they weren't.
Thank you so much, Mr. Biggs. We will now go to the Honorable Eli Crane for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Bongino, do you have any confidence that Secret Service has learned their lesson?
No, because I've been involved in a number of, we have 10 years in the Secret Service. I was in the training center when the Georgia grenade nearly exploded. And, you know, the only reason it didn't kill President Bush is because the guy wrapped it in towel. That's it. It's the only reason he survived, because we got lucky. And the changes made from that lasted about a month. They added more magnetometers. And then basically the same problems resurfaced again, so no.
I want to read a text to you and see what your thoughts are on this. Do you know who Joe Kent is, Mr. Bongino? Joe Kent, he's running for Congress right now, Special Forces guy.
Oh, yes.
Up in Washington.
Yeah.
This is a text he sent me on, I believe, Monday, August 19th. He said, "Hey, brother, I know you are doing an independent J13 investigation. I want to share this anecdote with you from my experience with Speaker Mike Johnson's U.S. Secret Service detail this weekend. Bottom line up front, Speaker's detail was incredibly lax, failed to seal off all entrances to a very small venue. Johnson wasn't secured and very easy to access. Long version. We had a local steakhouse host my fundraiser with the Speaker. Location was only available after people RSVP'd. But the entrances to the steakhouse had Kent for Congress signs on the 2 entrances. One entrance was inside the hotel, one out on the street in a busy pedestrian area. I arrived about 45 minutes early to check out the venue and to make sure my team had stuff ready. I also wanted to see if the U.S. Secret Service had a checkpoint set up. I carry everywhere. I planned on leaving my pistol in a hotel room my team had there. I entered the hotel, followed the Kent signs into the steakhouse, and immediately walked up to the unsecured holding room the Speaker was in. He was on a call, so he did not notice me. Neither did any of his detail. His detail was inside the restaurant just BSing. No control over the 2 entrances at all. Once the event started, they put on a good show and looked the part. I can't interpret their intent, but they failed a basic, simple task. Secure the 2 entry points, a shocking level of incompetence. The event was in Vancouver, in the shadow of Portland, Oregon. Mr. Bongino, is Speaker Johnson, what's his job?
That would be Capitol Hill Police, but it speaks to a larger issue with these security failures. What was mentioned about 3/4 of the way through that text, where everything becomes about optics. I'll give you just a quick example. You know, think about this. Why are Secret Service agents out there wearing suits? You don't see that with a lot of Israeli Shin Bet and others, because the threat over there is existential every day. I mean, these are little things. You're worried about optics and what people look like, you know, red ties on agents and guys who've got their shoes shined, when you're not worried about door kickers who are going to keep you alive. The good show part is a problem, and it's ubiquitous, whether it's DSS, whether it's Capitol, whether it's Secret Service. We have to start focusing on job tasks and not, you know, operational optics or who's got the freshly pressed suit on. These guys have to be out there ready to go into action and defeat that 15, 20-man Hezbollah team or group of Sicarios Eric's talking about before. This was a 20-year-old kid who broke them down. Can you imagine if they had detonated, taken out that fence line, and rushed a 10, 15-man team in there with rifles and heavy weapons? You know, there would have been a mass murder scene. That motorcade would have never gotten out of there.
Yeah. Thank you. You were talking about slings earlier and how long it took the Secret Service to adopt slings on their primary weapon system. Why is it important to have a sling on primary weapon system? And what is this? Why did it take so long for the Secret Service to get on board with having their agents carry slings?
You know, I candidly wish I was joking with you guys, but I'm not. The Secret Service's operating kind of de facto motto when I was there about technology, we're laughingly calling it sling technology. I mean, it's like technology like the wheels technology, right? Is because we've always done it that way. I'm not kidding. You get a bunch of Secret Service agents up here and you get them on the record, and they will tell you exactly that. You know, I remember when GPS technology first started, and President Bush was riding his bike, and we brought a guy into headquarters, and we said, hey, we're losing President Bush a lot on the bike. I mean, he was a good biker. He'd go in the woods. And, I mean, the guys were with him, but the motorcade was having a hard time finding him. Well, maybe we should look at this thing called GPS. We've never done it that way before. Why would you need a sling? For 1,000 different reasons. You may need to go hands-on. You may need to grab a ladder. You may have a weapons malfunction. What are you going to do? Hand the weapon to someone else in the crowd while I get my pistol? This is technology the military's been using, as you know, for since World War I. Who knows? It's just, it's a mentality where no one wants to take a chance. And if nothing's happened because they got lucky in the past, then there's no reason to change it.
Mr. Prince, I heard you had an interesting take on a public episode that I heard you doing an interview on. A lot of Americans believe that this was possibly an inside job, just based on everything that they've seen leading up to the assassination attempt. They saw efforts to impeach Donald Trump. They saw efforts to, put him into bankruptcy. They saw the DOJ weaponized against him, and they saw, folks try and put him in jail for 750 years, and then this happens. I know you have an interesting take on that where you really don't believe that. Can you go ahead and share that with this panel today?
You're right. There is a long list of ways that the one political party has weaponized all aspects of government in our society against their political opponent. And that is exceedingly dangerous for the survival of the republic, because that can go both ways. I don't think this was a grand conspiracy, another shooter, etc. Because if there was a second shooter,
assassination of Donald Trump,
the 20-year-old was shot, and the Secret Service detail did an awful job of getting Trump off the X and let him stand up again. Great instincts of the president to come back defiant, having just been shot in the head, to come back and say, fight, fight, fight. Great instincts on him. He never should have had the opportunity to do that, because his detail should have put him horizontal and moved him off there immediately. If there was a second shooter, it was a prime time for them to be shooting. So I don't believe there is a second shooter. I think this is a litany of incompetence. And it speaks to, as we also remember the anniversary of the debacle of Afghanistan, our problem is we have a federal government that doesn't have any accountability in any way, shape, or form. And I push back on you in Congress to affect the bureaucracy the one way that they care: cut their damn budget. Starve them out. Nothing else will get their attention other than their starvation.
Well, I can definitely agree with that. I think all of us on here have been willing to shut the government if not willing to shut the border, and we've made that clear at times. With that, I'll hand it over for the Honorable Matt Gaetz for 5 minutes.
I've learned a lot in this session, and here's what I think I've picked up. One thing did not go wrong that resulted in President Trump being shot. Mr. Bongino explained the 3 different layers and the lack of air controls. Mr. Schaefer explained the comms breakdowns. You got the paperwork back and forth with the field office and headquarters. So all these things are going wrong. So then the obvious question is, why did that systemic cascading failure occur? And I think you've given us really good testimony as to why. First, it's Bongino saying, well, this was bound to happen, based on these structural failures, with technology failures, with this embrace of DEI and a quota system. You had a very low floor to start with. And then I don't want to bury the lead here. You heard Mr. Prince's testimony that he believes that a motivation here might be they just didn't deem Trump a sufficiently worthy protectee.
That's it.
And that could inform on it. And then I think the most damaging, and I never really contemplated until you gave the testimony, Mr. Bongino, that giving the Trump detail the assets they requested, air, additional manpower presence, more folks, so that not everything is pushed out to locals, but indeed is the folks that have gone through the type of training that you provided in Maryland. Well, that was because that kind of a forced posture could make Trump appear more presidential, more ascendant, more in charge. And I do think that in addition to what Mr. Prince has said about budget, there are things Congress can do to direct specific demands for documents around those 3 vectors and work on all of them. To the structural issues, Mr. Prince, is it something leadership can fix? Because one thing we found is that you try to put downward pressure on any budget around here for anything, and it's like you're committing a war crime. And in some cases, we've seen some agencies improve
Yeah, Barbara,
when you get the right
right there.
leadership in and can administer, an effective agency. What's your perspective on that?
I remember in the late 80s, during the Iran-Contra crisis, controversy, and the CIA was not being forthcoming with some documents that Congress had requested. And of course, the Democrats were in charge of Congress then. Tip O'Neill was the speaker. He made it very clear that he was specifically withholding all the pay for all the SIS, the Special Intelligence Service, senior intelligence service officers at CIA headquarters until those documents were delivered. Shocker, the documents were delivered by Friday to the Congress. Bureaucrats will respond to very specific pain points.
Yeah.
I think it even speaks wider than this debacle in Butler, Pennsylvania, but the fact that and it speaks to under-resourcing Trump. They no-resourced Bobby Kennedy, RFK.
That's right.
When his uncle assassinated while president, his father assassinated while attorney general for the act of politics in America, and they denied him. So it is not too much to surmise that a politicized Secret Service succumbing to the whims of Joe Biden, sending 4 post holders to cover Trump, 12 to cover Joe Biden. At that point, no coverage of Bobby Kennedy. Again, this can only be solved. Congress has the power of purse. Use it as a large bludgeon.
Yeah, Mr. Schaefer, is there any dynamic you think I've missed in sort of summarizing this as, low agency performance generally layered with the other dynamics that the other witnesses have shared?
I don't believe so, Congressman. I think you've covered most of the relevant points, describing how that posture all relates and how this, began as maybe a single failure and multiplied into a much greater failure, just based on different levels. I'll say that, the local law enforcement agencies that were involved that day, both tactical and non-tactical, were improvising, adapting, and overcoming to a lack of intelligence that was provided to them that day. In my historical background, in the Marine Corps, these types of events require planning, require reconnaissance, require intelligence in multiple stages. It requires rehearsals, things that were not seen in this event for this day. My knowledge is when I came onto the scene that morning, that I was fed multiple briefs and multiple maps of the area. I gathered information as much as I could the night before, which is about the same time as my commander had received the briefings for that day. So we really felt like we were on the back foot and just tried to overcome that throughout the day and gather what we could.
Great, thank you. My time's expired, but I think you've all provided us excellent areas for further inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. I want to go over some forensic questions because I think that as we continue to peel the layers back, what we don't find is enough answers, but more questions that need to be asked. Just in a quick yes or no, do you find it odd that literally only days after the attempted assassination on President Donald J. Trump, while the roof was too sloped to place individuals for counter-sniper operations, that it wasn't too sloped to a roof for the FBI to go ahead and tamper, in my opinion, with evidence by washing the roof off that may have had significant evidence on it? Do you find that odd?
Yes, I do, Congressman.
Mr. Prince?
Yeah, I certainly don't realize, I don't understand what the rush was to wash a roof.
Mr.
Right.
Bongino?
No doubt.
Do we also find it odd that, as of recent, one of our colleagues, Representative Higgins, had uncovered the fact that the body of Matthew Crooks had not only been released and cremated, but that the coroner who's responsible for releasing the body had no knowledge of it? Mr. Schaefer?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Prince?
Sounds like destruction of evidence.
Sure does.
Given the gravity of what happened, absolutely.
Do you also find it odd that no ballistics, no toxicology report, no confidence in the actual, proof of who it was who took the shot has been provided to date? And also, just to follow on to that, how quickly the crime scene at the home was actually released before any evidence had been obtained and released? Mr. Schaefer.
In total analysis of your question, I think it warrants maybe a little more than a yes or no. I absolutely find that to be troubling. I also find that there were multiple friendlies that engaged the shooter that day, and no report has been given back to that local agency that was involved in that information. I feel that's critical.
Mr. Prince?
Yeah, again, there's a lot of things that just smell around the entire thing, and like I said in my opening statement, only the disinfectants of transparency will clean this up. And so covering it up and hiding only compounds a really bad look on the federal government.
Mr. Bongino?
Yeah, I'll say again, given the gravity of the situation, extremely odd.
Do we find it odd that in addition to a 20-year-old not having a social media presence and being scrubbed, that in addition to having the knowledge on how to create sophisticated explosive devices with a multi-channel transmitter, that there was also leaked evidence or leaked information on regards to 3 encrypted accounts? Do you find it odd that these encrypted accounts, which are overseas, has not been discussed and or talked about at any point?
Hell yeah.
Absolutely, Congressman.
Mr. Prince?
In the same way that Congress passed a law in 1992 that within 25 years, all things related to the Kennedy assassination were supposed to be declassified and released.
Yep.
Why cover this up? Why, again, what is being covered and what is being covered up and why? And it makes a bad situation even worse.
Sure
Mr.
does.
Bongino?
Odd, to say the least, yes.
I want to go back to something earlier as well. Mr. Bongino, Secret Service, NYPD, worked in the actual training of it. Do you believe that a protective detail should be appointed based upon the title you carry or the threat level based upon the office in which you are to obtain?
It should exclusively be based on a threat assessment. It should have nothing to do with the title.
And do you agree that if you were the Secret Service director, that when the request came in based on President Trump's profile, based on the existing threats that would need to be mitigated, based on the request by his own officers, that would be something that you would approve or disapprove?
There isn't a scenario where a sane, rational, well-trained Secret Service agent would deny CSU or counter-sniper assets to a threat, to a protectee with a threat footprint like Donald Trump. Not a
That's
chance.
right.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I know that you're enjoying the private sector, but I can tell you we'd have been far better off by having the director of the Secret Service be Dan Bongino than it be Ronald Rowe or Director Cheadle. I'm going to go ahead with this and turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Honorable Chip Roy, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, my friend from Florida. I know some of you are on a clock, got to get out of here at 2 o'clock, and I think we're going to come right up on that number. I'll just have a few questions really quickly. First of all, because we had some conversations earlier about the building from which Mr. Crooks was able to position himself. One of the things that's been talked about is the slope of the roof and all this nonsense.
The slope of the roof.
We've seen members, Clay Higgins, some of these guys been able
So
to walk
much
on that roof.
nonsense.
One of the things that I was questioning about, nothing was deployed, given the extent that it was allowed to have the perimeter inside of that, and then allowed that guy to be able to get access to it, and all the stuff you're talking about with the rings, and they didn't even deploy anything like putting barbed wire up or anti-climb spikes or anything else, right? There was literally nothing put up to deter someone from being able to get access to those buildings. Is that correct, Mr. Schaefer? You were on site.
Yes, Congressman, that is correct.
And I mean, would that have been, again, given that it wasn't within the perimeter, would that have been another
No,
thing they could have done?
slant
Was done
either.
something to at least limit the ability to have access to the building? Put some sort of anti-climb spikes, barbed wire, anything up around it?
Yes, there were multiple possibilities on how to defeat that or possibly take that out of play as a threat area.
A question I'd ask Mr. Prince, you raised the defunding question. I don't think anybody questions where I personally come from on desire to defund a large chunk of government to the extent that I possibly can. But that being said, I think it was Mr. Gates who laid out the extent to which you're viewed as basically a war criminal if you dare, raise those issues. But the real issue is, right, it's always the threat of shutdown, right? It's like, oh, things will shut down. And so this is my actual specific question. The psychology is always reversed. It says if you take the money away from the Secret Service in this case, or let's say we're talking about Border Patrol, dealing with the border. We had Mark Morgan here earlier. Anything we do to say, hold on, no, we're not going to give you this funding unless we get X. And then the other side says, well, you're taking away the funding from the thing you say you want. And i.e., we want a competent Secret Service. What is your response to that as someone who has been an effective and efficient manager of a large-scale organization dealing with security, to push back on that argument, which I think is a flawed argument? I have my own views on it, but I want to hear your thoughts.
What made America great, what made our society effective in the first place was competition, was innovation and efficiency from the private sector. Government did not make America great.
Nope.
And so that is a fundamental difference in paradigm that needs to be settled at the ballot box. And even Republicans have to return to being the they have to return to be the party of fiscal sanity, because even Republicans have been runaway spenders, prolific, and it's like going downhill on one ski instead of on two skis. We've been going downhill.
He's right.
Mr. Schaefer, and this is a question that I don't know exactly what you're going to say to it, but as someone who's on the ground and familiar with it, was there anything, we have that video, which I'm not going to pull up for sake of time, where you've got the sniper sitting up on the roof behind the president, right? And seemed to be looking across the direction to where Mr. Crooks was located. Was there at any point any rules of engagement or any orders coming down from on high that prohibited those individuals from reacting, to the best of your knowledge? Because I'm trying to figure out what was in their line of sight. And again, that's speculative from my standpoint because I'm not there.
Sure. So I can speak on both locations. So the north team, we'll call them, in the northern side of the buildings there, had a few obstructions visually to be able to engage them, to engage the shooter at that point in time. The southern team had a much better vantage point, and that speaks directly just to the location and proximity to where the shooter was located. However, going back to our earlier discussion about compromised authority, and Mr. Bongino can add to this as well, in that capacity, we don't need authorization. We don't need any other things other than the prerequisites for a threat to meet a deadly force response.
I appreciate that. Mr. Bongino, I'll let you comment on that, and I'll ask you one more question in closing, because I know you need to go. We had some reporting from Ms. Crabtree, who was here for the panel earlier and is here with us now, earlier about the potential engagement or interference, I should say, by Iranian authorities in terms of our ability to protect our president, Secret Service, and so forth. Do you have any perspectives on that and why that's particularly problematic, or anything to add about that, and how our foreign adversaries are viewing what we're seeing unfold in front of us?
Well, I want you to keep in mind that we've known about the Iranian threat after the death of Soleimani to John Bolton, Donald Trump, former President Trump, and others for well over 3 years now. So there's no, keep in mind, this is a regime that has a history of documented terror attacks who sloganeers death to America. So they're not actually, their motives are, you don't have to investigate their motives, they tell you.
Right.
They've known about it. If they have, and Susan's an excellent reporter, if you're not following her, you're making a big mistake on this. I have no reason to not believe her reporting or its accuracy. She's been that good.
3 sources, if I remember correctly.
If these 3 sources are accurate, that we have been compromised and security allocation decisions are being made by people under the influence of the Iranian terror regime, then this is going to be a whole different panel if we do this again. By the way, I have to run. I'm sorry. I got to excuse myself. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm done. I yield back.
Well, I want to thank our panelists, but we're going to do a quick close, myself and Congressman Crane. But before I close, I just have one more question for you, Mr. Schaefer, which is, can you tell me exactly how many rounds and how many shots were fired?
Yeah, good question.
Yes, so the total round count that was released after the investigations were done were 10 rounds.
10?
By the shooter himself, the threat, and 2 friendly rounds after that.
The 2 rounds, both making impact, or can you confirm on this?
That has not been made possible, or we have not had the opportunity to confirm that based on the withheld information of the autopsy report.
And given your involvement in this, what also have you heard on the explosives and the sophistication of the devices?
So the explosive devices that were used, the primary charge was a homemade variant known as ammonium nitrate and fuel oil, or AMFO, supposedly manufactured possibly in the residence of the home.
Possibly, you don't
Obviously,
know?
for those that don't know, in the construction of these types of materials, there is a process. There are things that need to be procured, and most likely those things would have been located through online means, which again leads to more questions, on this matter. And then the programming of those devices were done with a remote detonating device that was specifically designed for that purpose, most commonly used in the commercial fireworks market.
So needless to say that these types of devices being bought would have brought someone up on an FBI watch list potentially, very much so like the Pakistani individual who was arrested on July 12th who had traveled to Iran prior to coming into Houston would have been on that FBI watch list. I want to just thank everyone who's here today. I want to thank everyone who is watching and participating in this. Needless to say, this is the beginning of more of these forums. This is not going to be the only one. We need to get further transparency and accountability for the American people. What we know is that not only was it a catastrophic failure, but all of our subject matter experts and our on ground has confirmed the suspicions that we all know to be true, which is how much of this is criminal gross negligence, how much of this was potentially compromised and purposeful intent, and how much more information is the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Secret Service, and Congress going to be willing to obtain in an effort to try and go ahead and provide this to you, we the people. I think that it's key that we not hide behind the lowest levels of classifications behind closed doors in any of our committees, understanding that Congress and our salaries are paid for by the American taxpayers, our House is paid for by the American taxpayers, and therefore the information too should be available to the American taxpayers.
Should be.
I think that we look at what was the coordination efforts between ESU, HSI, and Secret Service. I think we get to the bottom of who refused, not when, not what, but who refused the surveillance drone, who refused to utilize the communications that were provided, who refused to provide the site security plan that would have shown all the available buildings. Was each individual building numbered, and was those indicated during the time of the actual security planning? Where is Thomas Crooks as far as the toxicology and all the other reports? Where was the white van, and what is the follow-up? Why was the FBI so early to release? And even Attorney General Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General, said she had never seen in her time as the Attorney General a crime scene released at such a rapid pace. What was the coroner's understanding of when the body was released, why and how? Why is it that they did not show up to the morning briefing? Why was a Kubota dealership only 400 yards away not being looked at? Where are the encrypted accounts, and why are we not getting further information? Again, I think that we're understanding that we've investigated the culture of the Secret Service and what needs to change, and why DEI is not healthy for our military, for our security services, or otherwise. But I think that we need to further investigate the questions of why did this take place, how did this take place, and what do we do to prevent it in the future and moving forward? I thank everybody, and I'll turn it over for the final and closing remarks by my colleague, Congressman Eli Crane.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank you to the witnesses for coming today. I want to especially thank Ben Schaefer for coming out today. Anytime you're in law enforcement and you take the risk to come and testify before Congress like this, it takes a lot of courage. So Ben, thank you. I know a lot of other individuals would not be willing to come testify. I also want to thank Mr. Prince for providing your expertise. This is for any whistleblowers out there that want to work with this committee as we move forward, or this panel, whatever we're calling it.
Calling all whistleblowers.
The email is now live if you want to reach out. It's j13tipline@mail.house.gov.
Calling all
That is
whistleblowers.
j13tipline@mail.house.gov. Obviously, a
J13
big
tip line.
part of this panel, and how much success we have or don't have is going to rely on whether or not we have people who are willing to whistleblow and come talk to us.
Don't be
And one of the
afraid.
reasons we're doing this, obviously, is because we don't want this to be memory hold, and that's what we see going on right now. It seems like the
Yep.
news cycle moves so fast.
Yep. Nobody cares.
This feels like it was 10 years ago already, and unfortunately, if we're going to make sure this never happens, again, we need to stay on top of this. We need to keep it front and center, and we need to keep asking questions. And so that's why we're doing this. We'll continue to do it, but because we don't have subpoena authority and power here, we're going to need to rely on whistleblowers. So if you guys want to come talk to us, we'd love to talk to you. That's the place you can do it. Thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to close with one last thing, which is just, we talk about this, we talk about the president. We've certainly, go ahead and put him up there. We just want to make sure we honor and respect the passing of Mr. Comparator. And
Yes, thank you.
we're going to keep seeking the truth.
Thank
But someone
you.
died that day, and that's why this matters. It goes beyond just the assault on the president, but a man lost his life.
A man lost his life and 2 men got shot.
And
Don't
with
forget
we'll
that.
go ahead and once again, thank everybody for what you've done. Thank you, Mr. Prince. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Bongino, who've done an amazing job, and to all my colleagues who are willing to come forward and
Yes,
not be
thank you, Dan
silenced.
Bongino, for your
That's why
truth
this
and
website's
facts.
so important. We look forward to holding a follow-up forum with new information, as well as we have other witnesses who are willing
That's
to come
right,
from
Barbara.
earlier. That's going to come before our forum, so we will be doing this again. And again, let's do this to honor Corey Comparator, who has fallen. Let us not forget the significance of August 26, 2021, and our fallen 13. And let's continue to seek and find out the truth. Thank you so much for your time.
Indeed, indeed. All right, you guys. So this isn't going to be pretty, but oy, 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 look at me. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, girl. Anyway, I'm so glad that they are not letting J13 fall through the cracks. J13 being the moniker they now give the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. I've noticed a lot more people also calling him President Donald Trump as opposed to former President Donald Trump. Barbara, you are so right. What is that if 1 or 2 bullets hit the attacker? Ridiculous. So ridiculous. They got rid of his body quickly. They act like criminals, and it's all in the cover-up. And that was a cover-up. But you know what? I think that the murder of Corey Comparator should be the basis of a criminal investigation, starting at the top of the Secret Service, which would begin with Kimmy herself, and leaking all the way to DHS and even the big guy. And you know who the big guy is, even though we don't know where the big guy is. He puts out a statement today regarding the 13 troops who were killed in Afghanistan due to his incompetence. President Trump, on the other hand, is literally putting wreaths on their graves. But the faker-in-chief just made a statement. And I don't know what communism is up to. But that's what I call her now. I used to call her Cackles. But Cackles sounds like a funny clown who maybe isn't all that serious. It is serious. The woman is a communist. And I put this on my Facebook page just this morning. The fact that the Germans, the Nazi Germans, that is, not the Germans, but the Nazis, they had a tactic about introducing joy into the population so they could be super happy while they killed their neighbors and committed genocide against their neighbors and acted like a bunch of very nasty people, nasty Nazis. Anyway, yeah, Annie, President Trump's a really good guy. Did you hear the other day there was a rally that he had and a woman fainted and he jumps off stage to help her? Dangerous for Trump, but so awesome that he did that. It was just like, I mean, sometimes I really worry about him where these people, they see his compassion and they decide to use it against him, but they always do. They always do. Yeah, seeing Corey Mills, that was awesome that he's there. So we do have actual voices of reason going on, but There are too many people, even people I know, which is very upsetting for me, to see them embracing the clown show on the other side. If you love our country, you will not let us fall into communism. That's all I can say. If you love our country, you will not elect people who have spent the past 3.5 years showing you exactly how they would treat you if you give them more time. Prices going up, and then they blame it. Price gouging. It's price gouging. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's worse than that. And we do live in a corporatocracy, but I don't know what's to become of us if we continue to let this this crap show of craziness play out. However, I gotta say, RFK Jr., woo-hoo! I mean, if that isn't a return to common sense, I don't know what is. So, I also have to wonder about the people who see RFK Jr., who is very concerned about the health of children, about the health of Americans, and the fact that Big Pharma is a big scammer. It's a scam. And then Annie puts it into the best words of all, that God is in full control of it all. Fix our eyes on Jesus. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder every time Annie comes in and she goes, nails it. God is in charge. However, we do have free will. And those of us who are freewheeling it, into communism. Oh, please, what do we do with these people? I don't know. But it is up to the Lord. And we must all, as Annie just reminded us, we must all use or be used by God as examples. Yes, we do have free will. But we must be the example. And when you live your life in a way that you are honoring your Creator, and you are honoring your fellow man and woman by letting them do what they want to do, but you can guide people only to a certain point. It's not right to tell people what to do. I'm not a controlling person. I've spent my life kind of people trying to put their thumb on me and control me, and I prove it's not possible. It's not possible. And now that I can publish my own books, get ready, you guys. Let the games begin. However, yes, it is really all up to God. And when you have the backing of the Almighty Father, and you are doing things that that will please Him, and I'm not working to become wealthy. I'm not working to become famous or anything like that, although there's of course a level of so-called fame when you're a YouTuber, Facebook Live, all this. Anyway, and fame being that people know you, a lot of people know you and you don't know them. But it goes both ways, because look, I've never met Annie or Barbara here in person, but I know them and they know me. So really, I think it's a connecting of people who are like-minded, people who do have the best intentions for their friends, their neighbors, and their world. And all the people who are on here, who I know personally, that's who you are, and you are my friends. And I am not just a talking head on a screen. I'm a real person with real feelings who really loves this country. And and Annie has a point, and this is very interesting. She just had that there was a tragedy with one of their church members in the father of our school, in the high school where I went to. Dad went kayaking in Wisconsin on Green Lake and has been missing for 2 weeks. His wife is a teacher at my grade school and has 3 kids. So praying for that family, that they do find closure, and that 2 weeks is a long time. Anyway, yes, President Trump definitely has guardian angels. I personally have the best guardian angels. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, what just almost happened? I know it. I know it. I know my guardian angels work very hard and they keep me very safe. And that's one of the reasons why I do have this awesome attitude of gratitude, as well as an attitude of, you can't hurt me, God's my father. You know? And people they do try to hurt me, but you can't hurt me with words, because I know who I am and I know who my father is. So, and Annie lives with a rare disability, but she lives with an awesome life and attitude of gratitude. Annie is one of the best people I know, even though I've never met her in person. We're soul sisters, right, Annie? So yeah, if you guys could pray for that family that Annie knows, that would be very nice. We do all have to pray for each other, and I pray for you guys, and I pray for the rest of my country as we face off on one of the deadliest fights for president we've ever seen. I do too, Annie. I have trust in my Lord and Savior, and that He has everything in my best interest. I agree. I agree. I think that there are too many good people in the world for Him to just, end it all again like Noah. There's people like Annie and Barbara in the world. I love you guys. So, and me, I'm a good person too. And I really just want the best. I'm not here trying to get power, fame, wealth, or any of that. I would like to be able to pay my bills, but I'm not worried about it, because the Lord always provides for me, and He makes sure that I know what to do to provide for myself. Big boats going by. So anyway, I'm going to come back on later and do a little boat show, maybe this evening. So those of you who bought my book and are reading it or have read it, I'm going to do a little question answer, and I'm probably going to have to do that on Facebook, because that's where most of my readers are. But my YouTube family has become very, very important to me. You guys have always been important to me, but now that Facebook shows me that I really can't count on them, and I know I can't count on YouTube either, but so I've got 2 places that my family can find me. That's all. And Annie says, I knew God had a plan for Ray, just as He has a plan for me, and He has a plan for you. And I think you are right, Barbara. There is a spiritual war going on around us, above us, and even below us. So, oh, Annie, you're so sweet. I think you are the amazing one, though. You've been through a lot, and you managed to live a life of gratitude and joy. You want to talk about joy? Yeah, they're taking away our joy. They always take away those words that mean happiness, Okay, joy, rainbows. It's, I see right through them, and I know you do too. You're right, Barbara. God wins in the end. You are so right. I love you guys for coming on and spending time with me as we watch these hearings. I think that's very important that I do shine a light on them. And I do like that on my show, you can come on my channel, and if you want to see hearings like this, I have them. They're all there. You don't have to look for them, because I put them on my show. So, because we need to know. We need to know what happened, we need to know what is happening, and we need to know what's going to happen. And I think it's really great that Dan Bongino, Mr. Ben Schaefer, who was the other guy? Oh, I forget their names. Anyway, the fact that they're stepping up and telling us the truth about things, we really needed that. I mean, it is shocking that they took the evidence, took the body, washed the blood off. Like, why? Why would they do that? It's a roof. It's not like it's the middle of Main Street and people are going to be disturbed by all the blood. Anyway, yes, 2020 was a rough time to live through, Annie. Girl, you're so right. So right. Anyway, we did live through it, though. So there's that. And we are definitely all here for each other. All right, well, I'm going to go now because I actually do have some things to do and some friends to help. So I'm going to say ciao for now and arrivederci. All right, you guys, see you on the next Beach Report.